Hej allihopa och välkommen till Pengaflödet-podcasten. Mitt namn är Emily.
Och mitt namn är Anna.
Vi håller på med fastighetsinvesteringar i Storbritannien. Och den här podden kommer handla om just detta och vi kommer varje vecka ta upp relevanta ämnen och intervjua personer som vi finner inspirerande.
Welcome, Tej Singh, Mr. Sauce.
Thank you very much. Hälsningar to all my listeners in Sweden. I'm excited to be here, man. This is is it your third podcast, fourth?
Fourth.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you, man. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so basically, as you hear, Emily's not here today, but I'm here. So we're doing this. Yeah, I know Tej since, when do we meet? Met 10x, right?
Yeah, that was like 9 months ago, was it?
Yeah. And he has a very interesting story to tell, and I thought it would be very interesting for the Swedish audience to listen. So tell us about your background.
Sure. So before I got into property, I was working in pharmaceuticals. I studied biochemistry at King's College London, and I got a job. It took me like 40 interviews to get a job, which, I mean, nowadays it's normal, but was pretty frustrating. So I had a job in pharmaceuticals. I then lost faith in the industry and just thought, this is not ethical. Got fired from my job, which was probably the best thing that has kind of happened because it kick-started everything sort of ever since. I then started a recruitment business, which, I had a friend who has a recruitment business, and he said, Tej, it's a great career. You get in what you get out what you put in, and I'll help you set it up. I am still waiting for his help to this day. So, there wasn't much help there, but it was profitable from week 2 and it made me good money, but I really did not enjoy it. It wasn't as people focused or as networky as I thought it would be. It was very sales, very hard. It was just getting rejected all the time, which is great because it built up a resilience in me that now when it comes to offers and, all this sort of things in property that you know about, I don't really care. It's just part of life now. And then I did that for 3 years, and then, like I said, making decent money, but not enjoying it. And I thought, you know what? There's got to be more. Like, I'm sure I can start another business. And honestly, I don't know why it took me 3 years to do it, but nonetheless I'm grateful for that time. And then I watched a lot of grand designs. I don't know if you have that in Sweden, or like amazing spaces where
web.
Yeah, where basically awesome interior designs and like just pretty cool houses. And I thought, whoa, I want to do stuff like this. So I got into property really. And then do you want me to kind of explain like how I got? Yeah, cool. So I went to like an education course, which, was okay. It kick-started things, and I didn't pay for it. I won a ticket to it. So I started listening to some podcast, went to this event, 4 days, very intensive, networked with people, built up a great network, learnt stuff. But then I was like, okay, I need to apply this. And it took me about 5 or 6 months before I actually, sort of really, really did something. Now, I thought I was doing stuff before, but I was networking. I was building up my podcast. I was building up a network that's priceless today. But, at the time, it's quite painful. And I think a lot of listeners might resonate with this. Like, you're like, I've got the knowledge. Let me go out there, get properties, be financially free. Let me do all this stuff they teach you. But then 5-6 months, you're like, just doing nothing. And it can be quite hard. But that I'm so grateful again for that learning period, because it allowed me to launch my podcast called Tej Talks. It allowed me to build up a network and a brand and just have a network who now I can call and say, I've got this problem, or I'm looking at this deal, or I need this, and we'll sort it on one phone call. That is so powerful. And it's taken 5-6 months and then the 6 months afterwards to strengthen those. So, for anyone listening who's starting in property, you might want to quit your job quickly, you might want to generate cash flow quickly, but there is that period at the beginning which I think is so necessary to go through in order to come out the other end. So that's what I did before property, and that's, I guess, the sort of quick tour of how I got into property.
And did you like have any doubts when you started, and like no sayers and people like saying, "Oh, what are you doing? Why are you quitting your job?" And yeah.
Good question, actually. No one's really asked me that. I think the simple answer is no. Now, the reason for that is I tend to be very, like, you know, if someone is not good for my mental health, for my mindset, they're not positive, they're just generally a drag and they don't have ambition, I'll drop them. Simple as that. Now, that sounds really bad, it sounds really harsh, but I mean it in the best possible way. Now, if I have a great friend who isn't ambitious, you know, doesn't, I'm still going to be their friend, but I'm not going to have them in a position in my head or in my circle where their opinion is sort of affecting me, because I think people like that can sometimes be negative or be hating, like you said, but then there's a lot of people like that who are like, hey, this business stuff isn't for me, Tej, but do your thing, man, like, love it. And I think naturally I sort of, before like property, I self-selected my network. And I'll be honest, in recruitment I became quite isolated. Like, I didn't have a huge network or like a huge bunch of friends, so I was kind of like starting again. As I started again, naturally I made friends with property people, entrepreneurs, business owners, people who want to be business owners. Because of that, I kind of, it was like a natural progression, going from not, you know, from being quite isolated and actually quite lonely in recruitment to then being like, cool, let's start this whole social friend network thing from scratch. However, for a lot of people who are in a 9-to-5 job, who maybe work for a corporate company or work for a council or a government, you are going to be surrounded by people who don't want the same as you, which is fine. But there's also going to be a few people who don't want the same as you, but will also transfer their own insecurities and inabilities to you, like you just said, Nana, which is like, ooh, you're really going to quit your job with no income? Or, you know, 5 months into it, oh, you're making money yet? No, I'm not making bloody money yet. It freaking takes time. You know, there's a few like certain questions. The thing is, it can be so easy to listen to that because you're like, oh, you know, these people know me, we've worked together, they're sensible, you know, maybe they're right. And, well, frankly, maybe they are right, you know, maybe, like, take that as some constructive feedback. But you have to have the confidence in yourself to be like, well, fine, you know, they can say these comments and yeah, it is a risk to do this, whatever it is, but I'm going to do it because that's me and I need to take this thing right now as it is. So, yeah, people are going to have haters, but just get rid of these people in your life and just ignore their opinion. Like, there's certain people in life that you'll look up to and you'll trust and you'll sort of respect their opinion. Hear everyone, but only listen to their sort of opinions potentially. And yeah, just have a circle around you that supports you and pushes you and is positive. Doesn't have to be all entrepreneurs, but just people who have the mindset to support you and understand what you're doing.
So did you have to work on that part, you know, like being strong, mental toughness, or have you always had it?
I don't think I've always had it. I've had a mental ability to just not listen to certain people and to like kind of do what I want, which I guess all entrepreneurs have, right? You always have that like, nope, I'm not listening, I'm doing what I want kind of like thing, which I think makes some of us good entrepreneurs. So I've always been able to ignore certain things in life, but the strength has definitely come from recruitment, picking up the phone, calling 30-40 different numbers every single day, calling the same people back a week later, almost begging for business sometimes and getting rejected 99% of the time, and also, you know, people being rude to you, etc., and people not liking you because you're a recruiter, just because your job title. You know what? It builds a strength in you, but it also can build a resentment in you. That's a whole different topic, but 3 years in recruitment can make anyone a hard ass. Honestly, you literally have a turtle shell because you have to, or else you wouldn't last more than a month, more than a year. So it is something I had to kind of create, but it was created for me in recruitment. For people who haven't got that benefit of that, there's a lot of good books out there. You know, I think really you just have to get thrown around a bit. You have to get slapped about a bit. You have to get rejected. You have to have a deal fall through. You have to, you know, like you've have people offer to buy your house and then they drop out. Like, you have to have that to be like, cool, it's all part of it.
Yeah. So you think salespeople does much better in property, or like they have like an upper hand?
I think, you know what, I don't think it's necessary at all, but having like a real kind of sales background, I think it helps you in life because everything is sales, right? Like getting your kid to do the laundry, you're selling them something, you know, getting someone to invest in you. You're selling yourself. You know, your deal source. Everything is selling. There's a really good book by someone called Daniel Pink called To Sell is Human, and it basically goes through that. Now, I think it's of benefit, but I wouldn't say to people, oh, you know, go get a sales job and then get into property. It can only help you. It's never going to be a negative. Some people are not good at sales, that kind of sales job, but they're good at property and like being persuasive and charming. So it really depends on the person. I think it's a general benefit.
Like me, I'm sure.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say that. That's one word. Okay, so what's your why then? Why did you start property? Like, did you have a why, or it was you got tired of, you didn't like the recruitment business, and you saw this grand design in them and like, I want to do this, or a bigger purpose? Yeah, good question. So I did have a why, and the why was basically freedom. So freedom means different things to different people. To me, it means getting up when I like, not having to work that day if I don't feel like it, but still being able to support me, my family, buy what I want, eat what I want, live good, and
eat cheese.
Lots of cheese, Whole Foods cheese, not like Tesco stuff. I ain't got the budget for that right now. But like, yeah, you know, to have just that freedom. My why is the same, but that's the bigger why, right? That's like the macro why. But my micro why is like interior design. So, and transforming my market. Now, you and me invest in similar areas, if not the same areas actually, for some of them. Now, we both know that a lot of the landlords there are magnolia walls, brown carpets, ugly ass kitchen, ugly ass and I'm like, yes, it's a house. I'm not complaining. You know, we're blessed and fortunate that there's another house for someone to live in, but it's a bit shit. So I'm like, right, like, let me come in and change this market and show people how they could be living for, you know, almost the same cost as other landlords. So I want to transform the market, give people amazing spaces. Like, you know, some of my refurbs, I just stare at the picture sometime and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah,
like,
it's really good. It's really
thank
good.
Thank you, man. Like, it looks good, it's functional, and it's gonna last. That for me makes me so proud that I'm just like, damn. You know, that's what keeps me going on a daily. Like, when it comes to buying houses, I think, you know, people probably think that I'm like, oh, another buy-to-let, that's £250 a month extra. You know, yay. I don't even think about that. I think, that's another kitchen, that's another bathroom. Okay, let me get my designs ready. Like, honestly, I literally think I buy houses so I can just have more things to design. It sounds silly, but that's what keeps me going on a day-to-day basis. And that's my micro why, but probably 99% of people in property, freedom is my macro why.
Okay. So tell me about your first deal then.
My first deal. Okay, so it actually was, well, I did have a deal in a village in the middle of nowhere. It was going to be £18,000 purchase price, which is obviously crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it'd probably be worth about 75 at the end of it, but it had big structural issues. And the thing is, I would buy it now. Like, the structural issues don't scare me now. But at the time, I was like, nope, I am not buying this house. And what I should have done is gone back to them and said, hey, I'll pay you 10 grand for it. But I didn't, because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the confidence in myself or in the property to be like, whereas now, all day long, I know what to do. So that one fell through, but my actual first property was from a deal sourcer who I met 7 months before on that education course. Now, the property cost me £50,000 to buy. We were going to spend 5k on the refurb, £5,000, because it was in pretty good condition, just a bit of damp, fix up the kitchen, a little bit of new carpet, bit of paint here and there. You know, it was very minimal, and actually I think 5k was too much.
Yeah.
And then we had to spend another £1,000 because a lintel, which is a sort of bit of structural support that sits over a window to hold the kind of house up, was wooden and it was rotting. They should be concrete or steel, but yeah, they used to use wood. Anyways, it cost me about 6k. There was like, I don't know, £1.5 of stamp duty. There was legal fees. There was paying some of my investor back, and there was the sourcing and project management fee, which were extortionate, to be honest. So all in, we spent £63,300. It recently got revalued, as it should be, at £80,000, meaning the mortgage has come back out at £60,000. So I've only left in about £3,500, I think, in the deal.
That's great.
Yeah, and after mortgage and after costs, it should net me about £270 a month. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's got a strong return on cash left in, which is how I work things out. So the refurb took longer than it should have because the project manager wasn't very good. It went over budget because, again, same reason. I still know the project manager, we're still friends, but he knows that I don't think he's a good project manager, or he wasn't at the time. So, yeah. And those are the kind of honest discussions that sometimes you need to have. You need to be like, dude, you were shit. And here's why, here's feedback. I think you should improve.
So would you work with him again or no?
Given that I know the training he's sort of had and experience he's had since then, and the people I know who are using him, I potentially would. But now I have so much more knowledge and experience, I'd be a lot more involved, and I wouldn't pay him anywhere near as much as before, and I wouldn't be fun to work with on the first property because I'd be all over him. And I think that's how it has to be. But then after that, it would carry on fine. So yes, I would work with him again, but in a kind of different structure, in a different way. So, there is a positive to come out of it, but I found plenty of other people in the meantime who I could work with, right? So
yeah. So the audience here are from Sweden. So what should they have thought about when they're trying to go to a source?
Yeah, good question. Because so firstly, it's going to be hard to find a good deal sourcer, full stop. It's going to be hard also because of the distance to then find a good sourcer who you can manage and trust. Now, I'm not saying all sources are bad, of course not. It's like any job with a low barrier to entry, you naturally get a lot of crap. Recruitment consultants, so much crap. Estate agents, so much crap. Personal trainers, so many. And that's just natural. That's the way it is. But there's plenty of good sources. So for me, the first thing is technology is your best friend because of the distance. So add all these sources, put a post out asking for sources and watch them on social media. What are they posting? Are they posting good deals? Are people engaged? Are they selling the deals? How big is their brand? Because you know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So the bigger someone's brand is and their presence, if they mess up, it's going to hit them hard. If there's a guy with 10 friends on Facebook and one post, if he does something wrong, it's not going to affect him. I always say pick someone with a good online presence and preferably a bigger brand to kind of insure yourself. Secondly, if they have a big brand, you will get, insight into their daily workings and how they're seeing things. That's really important because you want to know, okay, what is happening daily? What is happening in their business? What are they selling? What are the mistakes? Thirdly, it might be difficult, and it's not always the case, but it is nice to meet people because, WhatsApp and email and calls, things can kind of get lost in translation. So if you can meet people, you can look into the whites of their eyes, as they say, and really form a judgment about them and see how they behave and how they react. And then they can also show you around their investment area. It's also very easy to lie over email, and calls. But when you're face to face and you're looking at someone's facial expressions, it's a bit different. And this is a kind of new relationship, and you both need to be comfortable with each other. So try and meet them when you can. Again, another tip, which kind of I said earlier, is review their deals. Don't just find a sourcer, buy a deal. Find a sourcer, look at a few of their deals, get on their mailing list, stay silent, just look at the deals, keep looking. Cool, you like the deals, now you can talk about buying with them. I know you jumped in, but yours kind of came with a referral, so it's a different kind of story. That's another one of my points. If you can get someone to refer you to a sourcer who's used them or who works with them, then you've got an extra level of kind of due diligence done,
Yeah.
Just make sure the person who's referring you is a good person.
You.
Well, yeah, you'd hope so, right? So you wanna kind of make sure that they're referring you well. Once you've bought a deal, are they asking for money up front? Are they asking for an exchange or deposit or on completion? Is anything non-refundable? Nothing should be non-refundable. If you pull out of the deal as a buyer, yes, they should keep at least some of the fee. But if, there was something found on the survey or the seller pulled out, that sourcer has no right whatsoever to keep your money, because in fact you've probably spent more time and money on conveyancing and surveys than they have, and it's not their money, it's yours. So never sign something that's non-refundable if the seller pulls out or if the deal falls through for things out of your control. Read these contracts and make sure. In addition, some sourcer contracts will be from their limited company to you as a person. You then have personal liability. They then are protected somewhat by limited company liability. Make sure it's either person to person or preferably company to company. And this is not a malicious thing. I don't think any sourcer does this with bad intent. I think it's just what's written on the contract and maybe not understood. But understand the implications of that. So yeah, those are some of my tips for working with sourcers. On the other hand, you may not even want to buy property. You may just want to invest your funds with someone like Nana, someone like me, who can give you a fixed return and you don't have to do any work.
Yeah.
And, you know, given the distance, that may be an option. So before you even engage a sourcer, just think, do I want tenants? Do I want a headache? Do I want tax? Do I want conveyancing? Or do I just want the income? And then work out what you want, because it may not be owning an asset. It's great, and you know, at dinner parties, yeah, I've got buy-to-lets in England. You know, it sounds great, but what do you actually want from it? So start with that. So I hope those tips were helpful.
So tell me about the baddest deal then.
I mean, you know what? None of the deals have been bad, and that's testament to my team, my process, and the due diligence. Every property has challenges. I mean, every one of my refurbs has gone over budget, whether it be slightly or whether it be a little bit more. However, they've all been within contingency. So the profits and the payments are as expected, because I do worst case, right? So if something comes in budget, I'm like, hey, that's extra money, cool. But if it doesn't, I'm like, okay, that's what I expected. And that's the due diligence part, right? Preparing for the worst case. I mean, I've had one refurb that to now has taken like 16 weeks. And
wow, that's long, isn't it?
It is. And look, yes, the whole house was being replastered and, you know, it's a total refurb, but it wasn't managed correctly. It was super cold, didn't get heaters into the space, couldn't put the radiators back on because they were plastering. Basically, a lot of kind of mistakes made by people, you know, in the process of the refurb that meant that it's taken way too long. It didn't help that the walls were, you know, crap underneath. It took a lot of plastering to fix them, but it definitely just wasn't sort of handled right. And I think that's been the, you know, the worst deal, because it really, right now, it should be tenanted and should be bringing me money. That's probably the worst deal. I mean, look, there's always challenges, there's always problems, but nothing's happened that's out of scope or out of the expected or out of what I've planned for, really.
So what's the most common problem that you see now that you have bought a lot of properties that always come out? Say nutweed.
That's a lovely, pretty plant. That the biggest problem actually is the walls. Now, you walk into a house, the walls are standing. You think, great, they're walls. They've either now, if walls are covered with wallpaper, you need to budget for replastering and stripping wallpaper, because 9 times out of 10, that wallpaper is super old. It's hiding old black mortar walls that are crumbling, or they're going to crumble, and you have to replaster, or you have to tape and joint, which is another way of kind of building the wall in. Now, this is something that has come up on so many houses of mine that, you know, you buy it, you're like, oh, strip the wallpaper, redo it, but then you strip the wallpaper and you're like, oh, this wall is crap, it's junk, it's falling apart. We either re-wallpaper it, which is fine, but it, you know, you don't really want to do that. Like, it's not modern, and also you want to actually, especially if it's like, well, if it's a rental or a flip, either way, you want the walls to be as strong as they can. It's your asset. So that's one of the things where I've kind of been caught out before. But again, it was within budget, because the builder said, Ted, you're going to need a replaster. And fortunately, there was such a big margin on it, it didn't make a big difference. But yeah, walls, if you see wallpaper, be scared, add more money for replastering. If they're all painted, generally, if they feel and look fine, then they're usually okay. But of course, houses of wallpaper are usually older, in worse condition, haven't been looked after, so they're cheaper. So it's a balancing act. And what I do on viewing sometimes is, if it's a vacant house and it's just being sold, and I know, you know, it needs a refurb, I'll just pull the wallpaper off. Oops, Miss Agent, sorry. And they just laugh, because it's whatever, it's going to be taken off. Or I'll put my key in the wall and I'll see what's behind it, because if I'm spending X amount of money, I need to survey what's behind it. So yeah, the walls hide things.
So, okay, so tell them about the knotweed as well while we are at it, because people don't know about the Japanese knotweed here in Sweden.
So it is a very pretty plant, and it was brought to the UK, I think in the 1800s, in the Victorian times, because it was pretty and ornamental. People, I think, used to have it in their conservatories, but it grows like crazy. So they'd literally have it in a pot and they'd be like, ugh, it's grown too much. Chuck it outside, and then of course it takes over everything. Knotweed is classed as an invasive species, which means it will invade, I think, ecosystems and basically kill off other plants. And also it grows very, very quickly, and also it can damage the foundations of your houses. Back in the day, I think they also used it for railway banks. That's why you find it a lot near railways. Interesting fact, a lot of plants can spread by cutting or, pollination. From what I understand, all Japanese knotweed plants in the UK are female. So they basically can't pollinate. And when they do, most of the seeds, they all die. I think the main way it gets moved is basically humans being silly, or by waterways. So it falls into the water, moves along and gets caught. That's why you'll see it potentially in some areas near waterways. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating plant, and the way it grows and how it takes over stuff is just fascinating, right? That a plant can cause so much havoc. And you need to be careful of this. If it's within certain limits or distances of your house and certain sizes, it can stop you getting a mortgage, or it could, best case, increase the rate at which you get a mortgage. Now, sometimes the rate is so high, it doesn't even make it worth it as a buy-to-let. And then sometimes if you're going to sell it on, you got to think of the end purchaser. Is their first-time buyer or whatever mortgage going to be happy with it? Sometimes no. Is not something that I think beginners in property should
take on.
Yeah, just buy and take on without research and understanding and speaking to professionals. So be wary of it. In the summer, I think it's very easy to spot. In winter, I know, Nana, that I'm going to buy houses this year in the coming few months that are going to have knotweed, potentially, and I may not spot it because of how it hides in the winter.
Yeah.
That's just fortunate for the sellers, isn't it, who get to hide it. So, yeah, be careful in winter, but in summer, it's very obvious.
Okay, you bought a lot of properties through auctions, right? And why?
Well, no, so I've only bought 2 through auction, but I've bid on about 36. and that's my first point, right? You're going to bid on so many of these properties, but you're going to win such a tiny amount. Are you ready for auction? Are you, is your business geared up for that? Do you want to spend £200 per legal pack? Are you going to send a surveyor around for £200? And that's why I didn't go to auctions when I was new, because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to identify this crack. I'm not going to know what the hell's going on. I don't know how to read a legal pack. So I'm just going to learn separately and then come to auction. So now when I go to auction, I can read the legal pack myself. If there's something that stands out, I will call my solicitor and be like, look, mate, just give me 2 minutes of your time and help me. And they'll do that. Or I can identify cracks, structural movement, things like that. I've just learned to identify, but I also have a good project manager who's very structurally trained. Send him a picture, send him a video, mate, literally full report, full costing, done. I'm like wicked. So,
wow.
Yeah, and that's the power of your network. Yeah, auctions are great. However, you're going to view a lot. You're going to bid on a lot. You're going to read a lot of auction packs at 11 p.m. for a week, and then you're going to get no properties. And that's just how it is. If I could buy from auction every month, I would love it. 28-day completion, no fuss, no hassle. The legal package, I mean, it's to buy from and to sell from. It's beautiful because there's none of this 3 months waiting for the other side solicitors. It gets done. And that's why for me, I potentially will slightly overpay above my max bid at auction because of the convenience, because that saves me money being able to buy it quickly with no hassle. But I've only learned that because I've failed at auctions, because I've realised, hold on a minute, this 3 months waiting for the other side solicitors, rubbish. It took time to really kind of understand that and actually physically be like, cool, let's do it. And actually now, kind of got to the point where I'm trying to outsource things more often. I'll just text the auctioneer, the people I know there, and say, listen, I can't make the viewing. Can you just send me a video or pictures? And they'll do it. And I know they're not going to hide anything like cracks or knotweed, and I'll bid off that. But again, it's taken me 6 months of being in property full time to have the confidence and trust and relationships to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think I have to say this and repeat it because it will take however long it takes to get to that kind of point, and I'm not even anywhere special, right?
Yeah, we can talk about that. You've done your grinding very good.
What can I say, man? I enjoy what I do.
So tell us about your areas that you invest and why do you invest there? How come?
Sure. So I invest in South Wales, which is quite far from Sweden, I think. The weather's probably similar though. Now look, everyone asks me this, and I say to people, look, I invest here for the exact same reasons that you invest where you invest. You know, I say it to everyone. I say, look, good rental demand, good sales demand, and in certain areas such as Liverpool, Durham, Scotland, etc., low entry prices, high possibility of not leaving in much money. And I say to people, look, there's plenty of areas, well, not plenty, but there are a few areas in the UK that you can achieve this in. My area just happens to be, 2-3 hours from where I live. It happens to be like the most beautiful place in the UK. It is stunning. And the people are so friendly, unbelievably friendly. Like, I feel like I'm on holiday when I'm there. Like, I honestly, mentally, it is such a, it's just lovely, man. Just thinking about it makes me smile. Like, it's great. So when people ask me, where should I invest in the UK? I say, look, it's a very personal thing to you. But let's say I had totally free choice, and let's say location meant nothing, and I had a private jet and I could get to place in 10 minutes. Where would I invest? It would be Liverpool, because it has huge economical and fundamental factors that where I invest don't exist yet, or they don't exist to the same scale. Now, I'm comfortable with that. However, a lot of people wouldn't be. And I just think Liverpool is such a great area, looking at the property prices, looking at what you can do, and just looking at what the amount of development that's going on. And like I said, the economy, business that's happening up there, and the kind of hipster, cool areas. I like Liverpool. It's a nice, the city centre's cool, it's chill. It's got everything for me that is like, this is about to be a very populated metropolitan city.
So you think Manchester is like Liverpool is the new big thing? Because people have invested a lot in Manchester, and before Manchester was a lot of in Birmingham, right? And
Yes.
Now it seems like it's Liverpool, or do you think it's like both?
I think you're right there. Birmingham is a very tough market. There's still people making it work, but I think it's a very tough market. Looking at auctions, looking at things going over market value. It's too close to London. It's too easy, right, for rich Londoners to be like, Birmingham. I know Birmingham. It's close. I understand it. Let's invest there. HS2, it's just so obvious. So, of course, money piles in. Manchester, again, I'm speaking from like external experience and from my network, not from having invested there. But I think Manchester's sort of reaching like a peak in terms of saturation of investors and maybe property prices and availability. Now, that's not to say it doesn't work, or it's not a great place to invest, or there's not plenty of places to invest there. But like Liverpool is like Manchester sort of 2 years ago, right? And if you want to be somewhere, you want to be sort of before the hype, right? That's why I say Liverpool. But I still think Manchester's great. Like the northeast, Darlington, Durham, again, great places to invest. And there's plenty happening in the north. The government are putting a lot of money in there. So for everyone listening, these are my views. These are not like predicated on a huge amount of research. It's from my network and from my experience.
People were spamming you, say, "Why did you took me to Liverpool?"
Yeah, I'm not responsible for anyone's actions after this.
Okay. So tell us about your journey, how you scale up so quickly. I know about it, but the people in Sweden don't know. I don't think there's so many who listen to your podcast, but they might do after this one.
Well, I hope so. So you're asking me, how have I scaled up so quickly?
Yeah, your journey. Just tell us your property journey. Because what I know, after like 10x, you went 10x.
You know what? The thing is, after 10x conference, I was in a position where like I was kind of saying to people and like my goals, hey, I can get one buy to let or like 2 buy to lets sort of in the next 6 months, I'd be happy because I'm really struggling. But then actually it ended up being a lot more than that, and it's kind of crazy to look back and be like, you know what, one day and for a few weeks or months, whatever, I was just like, damn, when is it going to happen? When am I going to get more houses? When is the growth going to come? To then literally turn that corner, and then there's a huge amount of growth. It's kind of crazy how it's happened, and I'm actually still processing and reflecting on it because the growth has happened, and now I'm like, okay, let's implement some things to make this quicker, more efficient and better next time, but also like reflecting on where things went wrong and where the mistakes were made and where we need to improve. So in the past, I'll give you like a highlight. So in the past 6 yeah, 6 months, I have purchased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buy-to-lets and 3 flips.
Wow.
I never intended to do flips, but they make money, and then you see the money on the spreadsheet and you just think, okay, we're going to do this. But no, seriously, the reason I do flips is because most of my deals are leaving in £1,000 to £5,000. And when I've got an investor funding that deal, who's paying them the 5k? So for me, the flips, from what I've kind of planned, they'll make 30, 40, 50 grand, whatever, across 3 or 4 of them. I'm not going to see too much of that. A lot of that is going to go on paying my investors the money that's left in the deals that they're owed, and then technically making it a free house, right? Because I've generated the money to pay off the investors. It's like startups, right? Like in Shoreditch in London, they all kind of sacrifice things for a year to have that growth. Yeah. And for me, hey, I'd love to take 15 grand of profit from my flip, but if I've got 3 buy-to-lets that I now owe an investor 5k from that I've left in the deal, then I'm going to give them that 15k, because it doesn't matter to me, because they need to get paid first. That is the priority, and that's what we've agreed, and that's what's going to happen. So a lot of my deals have been funded by investors. I've raised £440,000 in the past 2.5 months. I kind of stopped for a bit and then was like, okay, money's up, deals, let it balance out, and now I'm back kind of fundraising. However, I have to say this. Yes, I raised 440 grand in 2.5 months, but how long has it actually taken me? It's taken me 12 months. It's taken me 6 months of trying, failing, building a network, having a podcast, right? To then me 6 months of doing property, for it to then only take 2.5 months. And people, rewind that and listen to that again. It took me 12 months to raise that money in 2.5 months. That is vital. People have to realize that it will take that long to build the credibility, to build your profile, to show people what you're doing so that they want to invest in you, right? And so, you know what? The journey's been amazing. I've learnt so much in such a short period of time. I've gained so many skills that are going to be so useful moving forward. I've made mistakes. I've had challenges. I've had so much that I've learned from that I look back and think, why the hell did you do that, boy? But then you learn from it and then you do better moving forward. So it's been crazy. And look, anyone can achieve it and anyone can do better than me. I know people who are doing better than me. Anyone can be slower than me. Anyone can be quicker than me. That's why I document things as well, because I want to show people, look, if I'm bloody doing it, wearing my freaking pajama yellow t-shirt all the time, right, then anyone can do it. And that's why what I hope my podcast brings to people and inspires people. So I hope that gives you, Nana, like an insight into my journey.
Yeah, it does. So tell us about your hobbies beside property, interior design, and I know cheese, but you have some more hobbies, obviously.
Hobbies. I mean, you know what? I don't even know what that word means anymore. My hobbies are building a property portfolio. No, you know what? This is a really good question. Like, genuinely, going to the gym, I guess, is like a hobby or like something I do in my free time, of which is very little. I haven't been going enough lately because I lost balance and I have been unwell, which is my own fault, frankly. And that kind of has put me off. It put my health off and it put my progress off, right? But going to the gym is something I love. I see it as mindfulness and meditation. Yes, you're physically stressed, but mentally you can literally be so peaceful. It's incredible. I love cooking. Like, I love cooking Italian food. I'm going to open a restaurant at some point in the future. Going to travel to Italy. Whoa. Yeah, boy. Listen, I'll sort you out. I'll charge you extra because you're my good friend. I know you're a property baller, man, so I'm going to charge you extra. I'm going to open an Italian restaurant, go to Italy, learn, I've travelled so much of it anyway, but learn from people and do it authentically, and hire people who are maybe like less able, or people who maybe traditionally wouldn't get these kind of jobs and not need it to make a profit, right? Like, to more of a social enterprise kind of thing, which I really want to do, which 2 of my friends who have a pizza business have kind of inspired me to do. Hobbies. I don't really play sports. I do like tennis. I do like badminton. Honestly, hobbies is like, this is the toughest question you've asked me. Playing Xbox. I do like playing video games. I guess it's like a kind of escape from stuff. And if you get to be like, an assassin in Egypt back in the day, or you get to be like a Call of Duty soldier, I mean, it's pretty fun, right? So, yeah, Xbox, cooking, spending time with my girlfriend, who's now my fiancée.
Whoa, congrats.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you know what? Social media stuff for me is sort of a hobby. Like, I love I love creating things. I love spending time on Canva designing things. So I think for some people it might be something they want to outsource or a job. But I'm just like, hey, if I can just design stuff all day long, happy days. I think those are my hobbies, or what is left of them, yeah.
Okay. So ongoing deals and future deals.
Okay, ongoing deals. I'm looking at my whiteboard because there's a few. Which one should we talk about? I'll break down the kind of portfolio, I guess. So 2 of the buy-to-lets, they're let out, great tenants, really tidy. One's got a pet rat, that's cool. They're fairly clean, but those are let out, bringing in money, happy days. All the others are in refurb. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, got 5 buy-to-lets in refurb. Now this is quite a painful stage because like
Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas, and also when a property's in a refurb, it's not making you money, it's just sucking away money, and then you're still potentially paying interest on a bridge. So yeah, ongoing is a lot of refurbs that I've been told should be finished sort of in a week before Christmas, or if not kind of just around Christmas. I've got a flip where I've had to actually find a new build team. This is interesting because I've had one project manager so far and they've been excellent, and I haven't need to sort of do that much, like in terms of speaking to tradespeople and getting things done like physically. But now I've had to find a new team because the project manager can't sort of manage all of this growth that's happening. It took me about a week and a half, 2 weeks to find a new team. It was a lot of indecision. It was a lot of searching, a lot of asking for referrals and using my network. But that team is starting on Thursday, as in 2 days from now, and they should be done by the end of January. And that is a flip where, you know what I said about the walls earlier?
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, we'll get away with it. The walls are great. Nope. Took the wallpaper off, and they're not crumbling. They're not the worst I've ever seen by any stretch. They're decent, but again, black mortar, so needs a replaster, which is fine because again, that's in budget. Got a flip coming on, which is pretty cool. I've got 2 flips, which one is almost complete. You've seen the pictures of with the marble and the black taps.
Yep.
The second one is such a nice house. Like, it's just a big house. It's going to have like a show home finish. I mean, it's just, I love doing flips because you can spend a bit more money. Like, you've got an excuse to spend more money. And so I love being able to, like, you know, like for example, on one of these flips, I spent £210 on a shower screen. You know, when you think about it, is pretty crazy. Yeah. However, I know because it's freaking sexy, I can get more money at the back end of it because it's so different and so unique and no one else has done it. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I love flips because you spend more money. I don't like selling assets. I'd rather keep them all. But the ongoing projects they vary a lot. Some refurbs are like $4,000. Some are like 6. Some are like 16. I haven't gone past the sort of 17k refurb yet. And honestly, I'm not overly keen to go past 20k. From my sums and from what I've looked at so far, I found that actually, if I spend 20k on a refurb, potentially make the same amount of profit as I do, like spending 15 maybe on a different deal with less risk. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the more work you have to do, the more things that could go wrong. Yeah, I hope that gives an insight into my ongoing projects. You know, future projects, I'm aiming to buy 3 buy-to-lets a month for the first 6 months of 2020.
Wow.
How many flips will I do in that time? Maybe like 2 or 3. Yeah. Again, as I said, I do flips to generate the money to pay back my investors. It's just about balancing, right? How much is going in, how much is going out? Do I need to do a flip or not? But like I said, I love designing flips because you can spend more money. It's a beautiful home for someone to live in that's like now their own. Yeah, you put more into it, I guess.
Could you tell us about the cross bridge that you did with your houses? Because the Swedish audience don't know how to do that.
Okay, so the cross bridge, fine. This is things here that, like, I always struggle to explain and everyone looks at me really blankly. So, okay, let's do this. I had a house that was unencumbered. What that means is there was no charge on it, there was no mortgage lender, we owned it in cash. This was worth, it was worth 80k, but for the sake of the mortgage lender, the bridging lender, they valued it at 50, right? Because that's how much I bought it for. Cool. So I had 50k of equity to borrow against, right? 50k literally sitting there with no one's name on it but mine. What I said to them was this. I was like, right, I want to buy another house, but I don't really want to put any money into it. What can we do? So they said, okay. And they said, look, we'll bridge 75% of the the house you're buying that you don't own yet, as normal, as a bridge does, 75%. Then they said the 25% deposit can come from the first house with the equity. So they said, look, we'll bridge this house, the house you're buying, at 75%. We'll also potentially bridge the first house at 75%, which is called a capital raise, I think, technically. Mm-hmm. So they gave me 75% of 50. Well, sort of separately, they gave me 75% of 70k, which is the purchase price. So I then took the 75% from the first house from the 50k. I used some of it for that deposit for the 25%. They'd already given me the 75%, meaning I put in 2 valuation fees, £300 each, a stupid legal fee that I, distance I didn't need to pay, but anyways. So I think all in all, I probably spent £750, and I bought a house worth 70k for free with like no money in at the first sort of instance. It's an excellent way to do things. However, the best time to do it is when you're going to remortgage both houses at the same time. What I find is if you remortgage one early, the bridger then wants all of your mortgage. Of course, they want to reduce their LTV, they want to be safer, and that's fine, that's acceptable. That's just their process. I didn't know this at the start. So, I was expecting a remortgage back to give me 10, 15, 20k of like cash, and I got 0. Well, actually, I called the director and was like, listen, bro, come on, what is this? And he got me 5k. The fortunate thing about this is the first investor on that deal was a family member who's not fussed when they get the money back. It's on the interest.
Okay.
So fortunately, I said, it hasn't even been 12 months. So I said to them, yeah, we're still on track for 12 months. If it wasn't a different investor who wants their money back in 6 months, I'd be in a tricky situation. These sort of things need to be researched at the start, and you have to ask bridgers the right questions because they're easy money, but they're not necessarily helpful money. Although my bridges are amazing, I love them, they're great, we have to know things too. So yeah, cross-bridging is great, but if you can remortgage at the same time, even better, because you'll get all your money back out. But I bought a house for free, and then what was left over from that capital raise was enough for another deposit. So I technically bought 2 houses from the cross bridge with no money in. Pros and cons, right?
Yeah. It's always like so. Why don't you believe in courses or mentors?
This is a good question. Look, it's not that I don't believe in courses or mentors. I just think there's a lot of shit ones out there. And again, it's very easy to pretend to be a property goddess, or to have all these houses or do all this stuff. I'm not saying there's a lot of bad ones out there because it's easy to pretend to be one. What I'm saying is that mentoring and like educational training are different, right? Mentoring is like an ongoing thing that pushes you up a further level and supports you through things, whereas training is like an upfront, right, boom, here's your knowledge. I believe in both, but because I'm a cheap Indian, I just haven't ever had to pay for education, but I've become educated. I may have paid for it in time. It may have taken me 6 months to be educated, whereas it may have taken someone here a weekend to be educated. But I think there's differences in the depth of the education. I think that there's plenty you can learn. Here's my theory. I call it Nando's budget. So, how much?
Wait, you have to explain what Nando's is. We don't have Nando's here in Sweden.
Okay, so for the listeners in Sweden, Nando's is like it's a Portuguese and African chicken joint. It's amazing. Like the interior design's great. Food is like decent price. A bit small portions, but the flavors are banging and it's consistent. Like it's really good. So, how much does a property course cost? Let's say 1,500. Now, how many Nando's can you get for that at £11 each or 20 quid for 2? So I say to people, look, if you took the money from a course and you spent that asking people who are inspiring or doing things you want to do to have dinner with you or to buy them coffee or something, yes, it would take longer, but you would form 100 times the relationships, potentially get 100 times more of the knowledge, but also build relationships that you wouldn't get from a course. So I say to people, look, consider that. Consider the money you were going to spend on doing, what I call my Nando's budget. Because it may work better for you, it may not. If you hate your job and you hate your boss and you want to quit tomorrow, then don't do the way I do it. because it takes too long. Like, don't do that. I'll be honest. Mentors, I think mentors are useful in when you're in a certain position. I'm kind of getting to the stage where I'm not considering a mentor yet, but I know in a few months it will be time for me to consider one.
How come?
I think in a few months I'm going to come to a point where I'm like, right, I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, how can I take it to the next level? Or how can I continue at this level with less input from myself? Or how can I then jump into, I don't know, blocks of flats? I think there's two types of mentors. There's mechanical mentors, which I quite like, which is very much like, right, commercial conversions. Here's what you have to do. Here's the maths. Here's how you find it. Here's the steps you follow. Let's go through it. And I love that because it's very logical and it's just like boom, boom, boom. But then there's like the other mentors, which are maybe more like support mentors, like maybe like more about your mindset or you as a person. I prefer the mechanical aspect because it's so efficient. It's like, right, here's what you have to do. Go and do it. And I love that. It's a recipe. So yeah, I think in a few months, it will be time for me to consider one. Whether that's like a fully paid thing, whether that's someone I know and we work something out, or whatever it is, I think it will be time for me to at least try it,
So your property future, what do you want to do in the end? Do you want to be doing buy-to-lets all the time, like buy-to-lets, service recommendation, etc., flips? Or do you want to go like to land development and commercial conversion or commercial, all of this? I know you want to do a restaurant in the future, Italian restaurant, but like in a whole.
You know what? I love buy-to-lets. They're boring. They're vanilla. They're not sort of risky. There's not like a huge amount of legislation that, well, I'm sure the government can destroy everything if they want to, as they do. But compared to other strategies, there's not necessarily the same risk or legislation that could come in and disrupt it. And that's not to say that we can't adapt to these things, but it's to say, you know what? I think if you want the most passive, hands-off income you can get, buy-to-lets are probably that, or blocks of flats, because they're buy-to-lets but like on steroids and separate. So for me, right, it's about being as passive as possible. And I know with a HMO or with like something where humans are touching, it's just not going to be as passive. So for that reason, buy-to-lets are going to be the base of my portfolio, the middle, the top. They're going to be a big part of it because of how passive they are. So I will always be buying them. And of course, the more I do, the more kind of, I'm not going to say cookie cutter, but the more kind of, right, here's a buy-to-let, here's the keys, done. It can become, and the more outsourced it can become. I will look at blocks of flats because, again, it's like a HMO, but the humans aren't touching. Good stuff you can do with like leasehold, freehold, and title splitting if you need to. So, yeah, buy-to-lets, blocks of flats are things that I will be looking at blocks of flats and continuing with buy-to-lets. I love them. I think they're the bedrock of any portfolio.
Would you ever consider to invest abroad?
Not really. I mean, look, yeah, we should diversify and have different strategies, but it's a lot of research. It's a lot of potentially a language barrier. It's a lot of me asking, why do I need to? And I think the global markets are connected. I think that's like a fact, they are. I don't really see the need to. Hey, when there's a lot more money in the bank and we're in a different stage of life, yeah, potentially, like whether it's a holiday home that I then let out or an Italian castle, which is definitely up on the mood board.
You know that in Italy they're selling out their houses for €1 and so. So maybe you should go there.
I saw that. Yeah, I do. But you know what? Someone emailed me, asked me, do I want to be on TV, buy a house there and do the refurb? But they said you have to fund the refurb yourself. And these houses are shells, like stone built shells. So it would cost like 35k euros to fix them. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to spend that in a remote village. So yeah, not for me right now.
Okay, so what would you have done differently if you started out today? Ooh,
okay. What would I have done differently if I started out? This is a good question. I never... Christmas is my time for reflecting because I've been so busy doing it. I just haven't had a chance to think. But I think... So I built my network, which I was happy with. So for me, like, I wouldn't change that. I would encourage that. If I started out again, I'd have more confidence in myself from the beginning. And I would engage experts earlier on. Like if I saw cracks or if I was scared of an auction property, I would just be like, right, who can I find to help me do this? Like who, do I need to pay a surveyor, whatever? I would have just taken the hits in order to grow quicker. Easy for me to say looking back, like, oh yeah, Ted, you should have spent all that money. But I think I would have engaged experts quicker. I would have had more confidence in myself. I read a lot, I listened to a lot of audiobooks. I think maybe I would like build teams so that if one couldn't handle it, I can chuck it out to another. And if they couldn't handle it, I could chuck it out to another. And maybe just build up my network of tradespeople, because like building flat pack furniture, for example, I've had to do that for my essay. My essay is 3.5 hours from home. That is very long. And, like I've found someone who's great, he lives locally, just text him saying, hey mate, can you build this? Can you stick this up on the wall? And he does it. Video calls me to make sure everything's, in the right place, and we're done. And I'm outsourcing my time. Now, I would have done that a lot earlier. Now, again, it's easy for me to say that because it costs money. But if I did it earlier, I would have had 4 hours extra free to go raise more money to go buy more houses. It's like income generating tasks versus non-generative tasks like admin. Yeah, that's what I would do differently. Like, I don't mean this in a cocky way, but there's not a huge amount I would do differently. Because I spent 6 months building that foundation, I kind of made sure those boxes were ticked. But there are quite a few little bits and bobs I would change, like just being more specific with refurbs and specs of work. Like, I don't notice certain things, but earlier on, I wish I'd noticed them, because now I do.
Okay. Emily just came into the room. So, if you could just give someone who is starting out 3 tips, what would that be?
I like this question. I ask this to people on my podcast as well. The first tip is spend time building yourself and building your network. Now, you are going to need a network no matter what. And it doesn't matter where they are in the country. There's certain people up in the north I can call and say, listen, I'm looking at this land development. It's not really my thing. Are my figures correct? What do you reckon on the build cost? What do you reckon on this? And we'll have an answer. Or I have people locally who I can call and say, I need a carpet fitted. Can we sort this out? And we'll get it done. So build your network in your area as well as just generally, right? And you can do that by going to networking events, speaking to people online, going to coffees with people, going to meetups, whatever, right? There's loads of ways to do it. So I think that's the first one. Build your network and then build yourself. What I mean by build yourself is read, listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks, immerse yourself in the knowledge. And that'll happen as you build a network. You'll build yourself anyway. My second piece of advice is to not base your future off your current situation. I first started off thinking, let me do rent to rent. And the reason I thought of that, because what most people think, right, is like stepping stone, nice, quick cash flow per month, nice amount of cash flow, and I can do it close to home. I've got a great area to do it in close to home. Those are my reasons, but actually one of my reasons was, I don't think I'm going to be able to raise investor finance. And because of that fear, that stupid fear and that lack of confidence, I went for a strategy that I had no interest in and gave it up the day before I nearly secured one. Now, so don't base your future off your current situation. Right now, if someone comes to me and says, Ted, I've got 3 properties for sale, they're this much. If I haven't got the funds for it, I don't care. I'm buying them. The offer is accepted. I will find the funds because that's my future situation. But right now, just because I haven't got the funds doesn't mean that I'm not going to buy it, And you might think, that's risky. Fine. There is an element of risk to it. But it's having the confidence and experience and knowledge that you can raise that money. It is tricky at the start and it is scary and it's not going to happen naturally or easily. But don't base your future sort of wants and desires off your current situation. Base your future off what you can achieve, which is absolutely anything. Another bit of advice. I've said network. I've said have more confidence in yourself. The third thing is due diligence. So on the people you're working with, on the things you're working with, on your spreadsheet, on the areas you're investing, on capital growth, on cash flow, on everything. What people tell you is potentially going to be very different to what statistics tell you. An agent could say, this street, lovely, all working professionals, they're all like accountants and all blah 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 whatever. And I'm not saying they're the best tenants at all, I'm just saying they could say that. You then go on Street Check and you see that the whole street is people on benefits. And that's not a problem, but that would potentially change your strategy or change your approach or anything. But the agents told you this, the stats have told you this. So listen to agents, because it depends on the area, but a lot of them know their stuff. But always look at like Google and statistics and information that's like hard, objective facts and numbers, because you don't want to base your revaluation off an agent saying, go on in, that'll be worth 100 grand, sorry, and then it's worth 70 and you're like, I didn't check a Rightmove sold data. And then your investor's like, the remortgage came through, I'll have my money back, please. And you're like, yeah, we're sort of 50k short, boss. Sorry. You cannot have that. So you have to make sure that your due diligence is tight. And what that means is saying no to a lot of deals.
Yeah.
You don't want to do, you've put in time, you've put in effort, you've put in money, but what you can do about it, you just have to say no. So do your due diligence. Also, like refurbs, like due diligence on that. Understanding how much things cost. Things always cost more than you think. You think, paint that wall, yeah, a couple quid. And it's like, nope. You got to prepare the wall, you got to sand it, you got to do... Tej, you want colour matched Farron wall paint, do you? That'll cost even more. So then, like, you have to know your refurb costing, and then eventually you have to know your habits. Like, my builder said to me, Tej, when we do a flip, I'm going to add £1,000 on top of the refurb. I'm just going to add it because I know what you're like, and I know that you like higher end finishes, and that you're going to see something sexy, and you're going to want to put it in, and that's fine because it still stacks within the deal. But it's due diligence. So, yeah, those are my 3 tips for people who are new to property. Oh, and listen to the Tej Talks podcast, obviously.
Obviously. So, what question do you have for me? And now Emily's here as well, if you have any questions for her. She's like coming in the end.
Yeah, exactly. But I watched the live video you sent.
Oh, thank you. So, my question for you would be... what has been the most useful thing that you've learned in your journey? Because you were investing from distance, like your listeners, you're in Sweden. What's been the most useful thing that you've learned?
That was a good question. So should I go first or you?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so for me, it's been that, like you said, you need to meet the people, We were right that contact all of the people through social media, then when we're going to UK, meeting them and spoke with them and got the feeling if they were for us or not for us, because it's easy on Skype, email, spreadsheets to just like, okay, yeah, this is a good deal. And then you just go with it. But when you meet someone, like you said, then you get the real feeling. Is this someone I really want to work with or not? I'm not going to be like, oh, I was right. That's the biggest thing I've learned, because I've seen several Swedish investors. They just go on like what they get, the deal, a Skype call or email, and then something goes wrong and they were like, oh, they tricked me, and like they didn't do their due diligence, like going on street check and all of these things, So yeah, that's mine.
That's a good answer.
That would probably be pretty much the same for me. Really do the due diligence, especially when you're overseas, because there's a lot of sources that just send deals that
doesn't stack.
Yeah, it doesn't stack, and I don't think they take in account that we don't get the same rate. Yeah, a lot of things is different when you're overseas, and the sources can take that into the account of the deal.
Yeah, and the brokers as well, Sometimes you speak with them, and then they say, yeah, you can get this rate, and then you tell them, just so you're aware, we're not expat. And they say, yeah. And then when you come to the end of it, yeah, you said it was expat, right? I'm like, mate, I've sent several emails. We've spoken on the phone. I told you I'm a Swedish passport holder, and this is our situation. And then you say like, okay.
Yeah. So pretty much, triple check everything.
Yeah.
With the same person. And I would say also the networking.
That's how we met you, and that's how we met mostly, not just property-wise. Like I told you when I met you last time, you have become a friend, Properties, network is good, and if you're lucky, you can even find friends. So we both here consider you as a friend.
Yeah, but not only that, like I heard you spoke about the courses. And that's also another thing that you get when you network, like you say. And you get people's take on it.
Yeah.
Because I feel a lot like you about it in a way. So I try to just take the education part and block out all of the BS. Because it's a lot of BS and a lot of upsells and a lot of,
1997.
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah.
Yep.
So I try to just take the education out of it.
Yeah, 100.
But okay.
Yeah.
So now we have come to the end of it.
Oh, what a shame. I loved it.
Yeah, I did. This one, like, we can drag out like 2 hours. People gonna say this podcast is like 2 hours, mate. So yeah. So what's your best movie and series and your best book? It doesn't have to be property or finance.
Yeah, I don't really watch movies, but I do like Batman, The Avengers, anything Marvel, Watchmen, 300, Sin City, anything funky. Next question.
Series. TV series or Netflix series.
Oh, best TV series has got to be Narcos on Netflix. It helps me practice Spanish. It's just incredible TV. Like, it's so well produced. Like, I love it.
So you go to your missus like, por favor,
Yes, I say please because I am polite. Yes, thank you.
And book then, your best book.
Best book. Oh, man, you're kidding me. Okay, Ryan Holiday, 3 books. Ego is the enemy, The obstacle is the way, and stillness is key.
Calm down now. You went too quick. Ego is the enemy. And
Obstacle is the way. Stillness is key.
Okay.
Amazing. But look, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. I look forward to getting it out there and hearing what people think.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tej.
And people, don't be stressed, invest.